Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 46 of Coffee and Crafting. My name is Elizabeth, and I am with Country Peony, and Country Peony is a craft blog that focuses on whimsical and colorful crafts and spaces. And so today's episode is a really fun one because it is the first Christmas craft of the season for Coffee and Crafting, and Christmas is my favorite thing in the entire world, so I know we're a little early, but I just cannot wait to show you. And so today's project, which is this paper chain garland, is actually a really special one because it's been featured in a magazine recently. This is actually the Flea Market Decor. This is the holiday 2024 issue, and it is on, you can see this whole tutorial or part of it on page 10 and 11. This is a really fun issue, so if you see it in the stores, I'd love to hear from you and tell me. And then also, speaking of more magazine features, today on my feed, I posted that I was featured in Country Sampler Farmhouse Style, and there are 4 projects in there that are really cute, and you're gonna love them. And so check that out as well. Okay. So today we are going to be making this paper chain garland. This one is super special to me, and I'm sure it's special to a lot of you because when you talk about nostalgic Christmas crafts, this one is right up there with it. So I love making these with my daughter every single year, and honestly, as a kid, this is one of the Christmas crafts that I remember making. But what's special about this one is that I use vintage children's books. So I love, whenever I go thrifting, I love to go thrifting. I love to source thrifted books that are vintage and that are children's books. Why? Because the colors are so beautiful. Especially the vintage ones, the pages just have such a gorgeous patina and such a gorgeous texture. And honestly, I love looking at them. And so I was at an estate sale actually on Saturday in Austin, and I spotted some more vintage children's books. And I fell in love with them. And then this one was a Christmas one, so I thought today's tutorial would be perfect. So what to look for when you're looking for the vintage books. I have found that these little golden books are fabulous for the size. They're perfect. And then I also like to look for ones that are a little bit tattered because honestly, it is kind of hard breaking up an old book that is in good condition. So all of these, they have a little bit of tattered pages, and I will show you kind of the workaround working with those. And then specifically the vintage ones, you can see this has brown on its edges, which I think gives it just such a beautiful color and dimension. Okay, so I also wanted to show you that I also found this one thrifting a couple weeks ago. It has seen better days, but I mean, come on, look at these colors. They're amazing. I probably wouldn't use a book like this unless I was cutting it this way, just because it's a little too big. And honestly, I think this would be great for actual art on the wall because of its size. It's so good. Okay, so I would stick with the little golden books. You can find these thrifting all over the place. You can also buy them on Etsy. You can even use new books if you're okay with that. And then I recommend getting one of these cutters. These are really handy. I'm sure you have one lying around already, but for today's project, it's perfect. All in full transparency, I'm not great at cutting a straight line. I was never good at it, and so this makes it very easy. Okay, so you're gonna need that. And then if you want, you can pull out your craft knife or an X-Acto knife. You don't have to have that, but it's helpful. And then last but not least, a glue. So my favorite glue to use for this is Beacon's Quick Grip. The reason why I like this, it's actually a really strong glue. This is actually a weatherproof and a waterproof glue. So you don't need all of that for it, but the reason why I like this is because it's got a strong hold and it's quick. So you put it on there and it dries right away. You can also use hot glue if you don't mind messing with the whiskers and everything. And I've seen people use tape, and I've seen people use staples. I don't like to use staples because I think they can get clunky and you can see them. They're not real pretty. And then as far as tape, kind of the same thing. So I recommend this Quick Grip. It's really easy, and it's by Beacon, which I love using all the time. So let's get started. Oh, and before we go on, I wanted to show you my adorable Santa mug. And I got this as a gift from Pottery Barn. My mother-in-law gifted it to me last year, and I love it so much. I have linked some of my favorite Santa mugs in the description below. You can check that out. And I've also linked this adorable dress from SSYS because y'all always ask where my dresses are from. So cheers, we're gonna get started on today's craft. Okay, so I've already kind of started, but I want to show you how incredibly simple this entire process is. So I love magazines. I love Christmas magazines, and I have been doing a lot of research. And this year, vintage and nostalgia is in. I mean, I feel like it's probably in every year, but it's definitely in this year. I think people are looking for just a sense of home and just nostalgia. And paper chain garlands are everywhere. And I've seen them actually hung from the center of the light and kind of brought out to different corners of the room. And I think that's beautiful. And I'm actually going to do that in my farmhouse this year. So I'm going to be putting this garland to good use. Okay, so let's get started. You take an old book, preferably a little golden book and one that's torn already. And then to get started, I like to just use a craft knife. But again, you don't have to use this. You can just neatly tear it. But this just kind of scores it to make it easy when you are tearing it. So you're just going to kind of score it, and then that kind of tears off real easily, so you have a nice clean edge, okay? And then we're going to carefully put up our craft knife, and we're going to take our cutter. So each of my strips is I found it's helpful to be about 1.5 inches thick. So I find my lines on my cutter that are 1.5 inches thick, and I start from one end and I just carefully cut. And the beauty with this cutter is obviously it's really neat and simple, but it's just really easy. So about 1.5 inches. And the reason why I love children's books too is because you've got really fun illustrations, colors, and words on both sides of the book. Yes, Christy, it's such a cute book. I found it thrifting. I don't know if you saw that. I found it thrifting in Austin last weekend. Okay, so the way I suggest working is working in batches. So you're just going to cut the strips of paper first, and then you start working on your garland. So for my tutorial that I posted below, the one that was featured in the magazine, it's about 6 feet long, the garland is, and I use one book. So just determine how much garland you want to use, and that will also determine how many books you need, okay? And if you want, you could mix it in with, you could do a vintage paper, and then you can have like a red cardstock paper, and then a vintage paper, and then a red paper or green paper, whatever you want. They don't all have to be vintage, but I just personally like the look of this. It's super understated and it's beautiful. And I like that you can kind of read the words too, and you know that this came from a Christmas book. Okay, so we'll get started on this. I'm actually going to connect the piece to this, but I want to show you how I get started. So, yes, you do need to find a book, Christy. You would make a fabulous one. Okay. So again, we're going to get this quick dry glue, and then this is a pro tip. I always have just a little towel nearby because sometimes this likes to ooze a little bit and make a mess. Okay, so we're going to get started just by creating the first loop. And all you're going to do, and this is probably about 1/4 inch way down, you're just going to apply a very small amount of glue. You barely need any. So you're just going to apply just a little bit of glue, and see, I added too much, which is fine. I can kind of clean that off a bit. But you just apply the glue. It's hard to see the glue, but about 1/2 inch down. And then you bring the paper over it. So you're looking at about 1 inch of coverage. And again, the reason why I like using glue over tape or staples is because you can't see it. It's amazing. The tape and staples, sometimes they can be a little arduous and they just kind of get in the way. Okay, so it's already dry. How fabulous is that? So that's your first loop. And then you're going to take your next strip and you're going to needle it through. I also have to mention that sometimes the pages, the colors are more vibrant on one side. So just determine which side you want showing. But again, that's why I like using children's books, because both of the sides are beautiful. So again, we're just going to needle it through, and then you're just going to apply a tiny amount. You just need a little bit of glue because we're just dealing with paper here. And that's it. So easy, so simple. You're going to love it. This is something you can do with your children, with your grandchildren. It's such a fun and relaxing craft. And honestly, you really can't mess it up because it's just beautiful, and it's that handmade quality that I think we're all after this time of the year. So I'm just continuing to add the garland pieces, needling them in, and then again deciding which size I want. The only thing I do recommend, and it's up to you if you want a frayed look, but sometimes with these old books, the edges will be kind of torn and so forth, maybe just cutting that off, because I do like, even though this is old, I do like a little bit of a clean line with the chain part of it, okay? So you can continue that. So we have our first chain, which was so easy to make. Now I'm going to cut a couple more so I can show you how I'm going to bring the chain together. Okay, so again, I'm going to score this. And I would love to know, let me know in the comments below if you've ever done this before, if you've ever used a vintage children's book to do it, and how long you've made one, because this year, my daughter and I, we are just going to cover our living room, which it's not, we don't have a huge living room. I live in a small farmhouse, which is so cute, but it's not huge, but I would love to cover it with the paper chains. I think that's so beautiful. While I'm cutting this, I wanted to mention again, I'm doing a 1.5 inch widths for these. And as far as storage goes for these, I mean, honestly, you can leave them up year round, or if you don't want to, I recommend storing them in like a pretty sturdy Tupperware box or something like that, because I have found that if you store them in with other things, they're going to get crinkled, and it's just, they're not going to be as beautiful the next year. And the cool thing about storing it well is that you can use it year after year, and you can also add on to it year after year. Yes, this would be such a fun family activity, Christy. I think you're going to love it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to connect the two. And the reason why I want to show this to you too is that if you are doing a family fun activity, like you can have your daughter or your son or your grandchild making one while you make the other, and then you're going to have to connect them. And it's just as simple as this. You're just bringing the two pieces together, and again, you're just gluing it. And I want to reiterate that I like to use the glue over staples or tape because I find it a lot easier. And this glue is a quick dry glue. It's from Beacon, and it dries so quick. I mean, it's amazing. Look at that. Look how cute that is. I just love that so much. It looks so good with all different types of decorations. I've got my farmhouse stockings back here from my thrifted quilts. But it could also be really fun as like a colorful Christmas, because I love colorful Christmases as well. So it's really just up to you. I'm going to keep adding this to it. I would love to hear if y'all have any questions. See, for instance, the Santa is so beautiful, how that was cut. So I'm going to feature him in there. And again, I do like to have a little towel nearby just because it does get a little messy, but that's okay. So maybe you have your one grandchild cutting and then one maybe looping while you glue. It's just up to you what works for you. And I am just so excited to make all of these Christmas crafts. This is one of my favorite memories as a kid, was crafting with my mom. And honestly, I believe this is why I love to craft so much, is because of all these beautiful memories that I got during Christmas time. Okay, so this was about 5 pages. And I just think that's beautiful. And so you can also hang it on the tree, like I've got my tree here. Again, you can kind of weed it into your stockings on your mantle. You can put it in with the garland on your mantle, or you can do it alone. It's really up to you. I am probably going to be hanging them from my ceiling. I'm going to hang them from the chandelier in my living room and kind of having it coming out. It's going to be so beautiful. And the really cool part is you get to see the words and some of the fun imagery, like this beautiful Santa. I love crafts like that or projects like that you really start to look at. Even the details are so fun and so beautiful. And they're so easy to make. It's going to create such a beautiful memory for you and your family as you make this and then as you put it up every single year. So I hope this inspires you to have a little fun with your Christmas crafting this year and your Christmas decorating. I would love to know if you do make this, please tag me. I love to see your projects because y'all are all so very inspiring and creative. And if you have any questions, you know you can always email me, message me. My messages are always open. So thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you next week for another episode of Coffee and Crafting. I hope you have a beautiful week. Thank you, guys.